in all of these experiences, when we talk of preventing, and that's what's so wonderful about Citizens for Peace, that it's not that we are just going to react. Of course we must react every time there is a violence breaks out and something happens, and we need more voices to stand up against it. But at other times, how do we keep our sense of urgency that we need to actively do something? My own, I try and keep my optimism high. Of course, one does get sometimes cynical, and those are times when, again, there is a violence breaks out and you're trying to react, and you just suddenly feel you're very small in numbers, because every person that you talk to, and people, I'm sure all of us have gone through that you scratch their surface, and some inane conversation, some crazy amount of prejudice that comes out, and you feel, really, do people actually feel that way, think that way? Where is it coming from? It's not even coming from their experience. You so often hear, oh, but I mean, I have Muslim friends, it's not about that. My driver, he's worked with me for 20 years and he's a Muslim, and we really don't. It's like, I love Shah Rukh Khan, but all others, that's a different matter. So those kind of things are not coming from the masses, but very much, and that is what concerns me primarily, because the voices, the decision-making people also emerge from this class of people. Those who write come from this class of people, and therefore the responsibility, I think, is enormous. And how do we educate ourselves? I mean, as kids, I think anything that came in the papers, we thought that was the ultimate truth, and now it is about what you are reading versus what I am reading, which channel are you watching versus what I am watching. So how do we educate ourselves? How do we on a regular basis continue to do all kinds of different things? I think the answer somewhere lies in maybe what Rajni said about the multiplicity of these answers, that there has to be a simultaneity of various different things, and not that policy versus working on the ground versus little chits of paper being distributed versus I mean, it just has to be all of it. We have seen how in Gujarat the right-wing groups would have their little pamphlets or little flyers which said, do not buy anything from a Muslim, do not get your daughter married to or speak to a Muslim, etc. So somewhere sometimes it does depress me that have we, the secularists, the peace-loving people, have we been less active? Have we not really found those different ways in which we could reach out? Can't each one of us, it might sound foolish and naive, but can't we just print tons of flyers and actually just push them in between, newspapers and magazines and these books? I mean, if soaps and shampoos and cars and everything can be sold, or various other things can be sold so rampantly, why don't we have one good public service ad that somebody is making and somebody is producing and somebody is airing? I mean, can we not form that nexus in all of us who are seemingly, we have a voice, we have a platform? So that I sometimes feel that somewhere we have failed in the way we have engaged with peace. Even the voices, when something happens, the same voices come out, and I think that is again we need to look within. And so therefore something like peace or something like standing up against violence in a way is every citizen's responsibility. There are films that are talking about it, there are books being written, there are articles that are stirring things, but then sometimes, let's say for example, a film called A Wednesday, it did really well, and I'm sure many of you like it as well, and it is a very impactful film, but at the end of the day it tells you that a common man, if he's really angry, needs to be completely unconstitutional, needs to be completely undemocratic, needs to take law in their own hands, and needs to punish the devil. And I'm not so sure if that is a healthy thing to really impart. And were there enough voices to say something like that there is a danger in that kind of messaging? And I think often in expressing our angst or anger and all of that, sometimes the mass media, with best of intentions, sometimes I think the intentions are noble, but because there isn't enough in-depth either understanding or exposure or empathy, that it is dealt with in a superficial way. So I'm often accused that, oh, you're very prejudiced maybe about the commercial cinema. although I do think a lot of the change will happen whether we like it or not through that cinema, because that is what people watch. So so sometimes you feel that the mainstream also engages at a superficial level. So there is a dilemma as to how to make the mass media, the more commercial setup, exposed to all of this in a deeper way, and how to make what we call the independent cinema or the parallel cinema or whatever that is kind of being washed over, but how do we make that more mainstream? How do we reach that to various people? So sometimes I feel that we ourselves don't, with best of intentions, don't really participate enough and make each other feel strong and each other feel a little more empowered to say that yes, we are not alone, and we probably need to connect the dots. Therefore, the most dangerous thing is probably this whole culture of silence and also ignorance, and one tends to fear what one doesn't know more. I've gone to Pakistan many times, and once with Harsh as well, and when I come back and tell stories, I realize that we just know so little about it. So therefore, there is a certain image of it. To put it very simplistically and sort of almost in a strange way, that our opponents or the ones we are trying to fight are doing a lot of hard work in a very structured manner to see that there could be, whether it's state violence or whether the mass hysteria can be brought up, whether they can cash on the fact that nameless, faceless people are feeling too small in consumerism and all of that surrounds them, that they do need a sense of identity, and they are going to latch on to something that gives them that sense of identity, whether on the basis of language or religion or community or whatever. So I think we need to work harder and create really on an almost urgent basis really a charter for that prevention, because otherwise we won't be able to wish it away.